Having a 4-year-old, almost 5, who is constantly asking for one thing and then changing their mind, and then you have this bowl of food and I don't always want to eat what's in that bowl. So I will either give it to the chickens or I'll put in compost, knowing that it's not really going to waste. It works. It makes me feel better about food waste, that it's not just going into the landfill. Our garden and the city really have a partnership. So we're really closing the loop because we have a relationship that we give to them what we can't use, and then we get back from them to help supplement our soil, to help our garden and plants grow, and give back to the community by participating in the composting program.
I like to call compost anything that was ever alive, plant or animal. So you can really think about your coffee filters that were, once a tree, so that those coffee beans and that filter can all go into your compost cart outside.
This is the beginning of the composting operation. So this is one of our residential trucks dumping a load of yard trimmings and food scraps. And from here, it'll go into our process. They'll grind it, remove materials that can't be composted, and then it'll go into the composting operation. The loader dumps it into the hopper, and it goes up this conveyor belt. And then there's screens, similar to what are in our recycling facility. And what they're doing is they're just kind of moving the material over, and the small stuff falls through. And the small stuff is really just like leaves and fruit and little pieces of yard trimmings. And that goes outside the building, and that's good to go to composting. It doesn't need to be ground through our other machines. So after that, the bigger stuff goes on to the conveyor belt where we have our sorter.
So the big items will come through here and they fall off actually. So you get a lot of large, dense pieces of wood. There's 2 people, one on each side, typically with a tool. And if they find something that's not compostable, they can use a tool and grab it off, and it'll actually be put into the giant dumpster below. This is another safeguard we have in place for the composting process to ensure non-organic material does not end up in our composting in the final product. And then it'll go on. It'll go on to the next part, which is a grinder, making all the pieces small, and then through our trommel.
If you think about what's going through this system, you have a lot of wood, and you have also yard trimmings, leaves, food scraps. The wood really doesn't break down very well in the composting process. It just takes forever to decompose. So we have other uses for wood. So we'll remove the wood, and what we do is once it's ground and it goes through that trommel screen, is all the small stuff, the fines, which are really the organics that we want to compost, will fall out. It also gives us a way that we can separate the plastics that are in there. So we're kind of removing the big stuff from the little stuff. And then there's another machine which acts like a vacuum to suck off plastic bags, kind of made it through for whatever reason. And then finally you can go off the end of the line. Over there you see wood. That will go for biomass electricity for energy production. So we can generate all the electricity to run all this equipment and really be a closed loop system.
Composting. What we do is really basic on one level. Are there little garbage men running around the forest floor and collecting the organic material to compost? No, Mother Nature has figured it out. So a lot of what we're doing is getting back to the basics and just trying to understand the natural systems and then putting it on an industrial scale. And that's what our composting system really is. And I think the public-private partnership has allowed for that. We're pulling on the same end of the rope, trying to get to that higher diversion rate, but also the capture of materials and the preventing of waste in the first place. It's the key to multiple environmental savings, not just keeping some tons out of landfill.
This is our covered aerated static pile composting system. So we used to just have open windrows, which are just piles that we would turn with our tractors, with our loaders. And this new system actually has pipes underneath the concrete. So this is our blowers, right? So underneath that concrete pad are all the pipes. So over there you have a big blower, and it's actually just blowing air into the different pipes, and then down underneath the concrete pad, and then back up into the different areas of the composting operation. So you can hear the air blowing, and there's these holes, and the air blows up into the piles. And those pipes are blowing air through the piles mechanically. And so there's these holes, there's 3,300 of them throughout this whole 2-acre pad. And what it does is we'll load the material in that we process, that organic waste, into these bays, and then the air will start to aerate them. And composting, those microbes really need oxygen and they need water. And this is actually giving them oxygen very quickly and in a very uniform manner so that the decomposition process can happen very quickly. And so we don't have to turn them. That's why it's called static pile. And then the cover is actually just a finished layer of compost or compost overs, and that acts as a biofilter. So any emissions that are coming off the piles and odors are actually being stopped by that filter. And then we'll just put our sprinklers on top to water the piles. And then right up there, you see some wires with probes, and those are our temperature and aeration probes. So we'll actually put those in to the piles, and they keep temperature so that we know which areas of the pile need more air or less air, because we want the piles to be between 131 degrees and 170 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the magic temperature range for compost. And then after 23 days, it's taken out, it goes across the street to be cured for 40 more days. And in those piles, there's no active aeration, but they are continuing to compost and finish so that the product then can be screened and go to market. The whole process is just a little over 60 days to go from material that you saw being dumped to being finished compost. So this is where we're going to screen our finished compost. This is a trommel screen, and they dump in the material and it rotates, and there's 3/8 inch holes. And so the compost, the fine material, goes outside, and that's our finished product, and they can go be sold.
So you can see how rich and earthy it looks. Usually there's steam coming off as well because it's so hot. A bigger pile of our finished product would definitely have steam, but absolutely gorgeous.
What we throw out, what we throw away, everybody has to realize there's no true away. Where does it really go? And is it a good idea to make mountains out of waste? Or is it a better idea to recapture it and make it something beneficial? The idea of recycling, it's not just about the landfill space you save, but all the virgin materials that you didn't have to extract from the environment and all those impacts, the pollution that goes down, the water savings. It just unlocks so many things, and it's a real practical thing that can and should be done. You're doing something active and important for our world.